It's time to get into the meat and potatoes of the sandwich sock series. Or, well, just the meat, really, because today we're making hamburger socks. When I decided on this series, this was the part I was the most nervous about. I wanted socks that looked like sandwich fillings. And as a Midwestern girl, that means including some kind of meat. But I didn't want socks that looked like raw meat to actually wear. And I wanted something that would be totally fine to just wear on its own without the rest of the sandwich socks, because I only have 2 feet. But I still wanted it to look like a sandwich filling when it was together in the set. And I stumbled on this in a yarn shop that is not even my local yarn store, but it is near where some family lives. And I stopped by and I found this. This is the perfect hamburger yarn. Like, doesn't this look like it should have come straight off the grill? It's absolutely perfect. And it's a chunkier yarn than either the ketchup or the mustard socks. And if you haven't seen those yet, you know where to find the link. If you have already seen the ketchup and mustard socks, you'll know that I've been trying to do something new with each of the socks in this series. These are going to be such great, cozy winter socks, and I'm so excited to wear them, especially in the studio where the floor tends to be a little bit chilly. These socks knit up so fast, which was great because I got to try a few new techniques. The yarn that I used for these was Plymouth Yarn Company Aventura in the color 44 Chestnut. This is a 60% alpaca, 40% merino wool blend. And the pattern for these is the Cozy Chillin' Socks by Michelle Higgins of Finicky Creations, which is, of course, if you saw the last video, a free Ravelry download that I will leave for you in the description. This is a Teoh up pattern, but it uses Judy's Magic Cast On, which I hadn't ever seen before. I'm still not sure I really understand it, but I have to say, following the video tutorial linked in the pattern, I was able to do it, and it does look nice. I also admit here that I am not showing you the part where I had to tear all of it out because my Make One Right increases were backward and there were huge holes just sort of randomly in the toes, and I was really unhappy with it. But I decided before I totally gave up and just did the toes like the other 2 pairs that I would try one more time, and I'm so glad I did because it turned out I was making my increases backward, and when I stopped doing that, they stopped having giant holes in them, like magic. But let's get back to once I cast on and just pretend that it's the first time. Part of knitting for me is accommodating for myself. You'll see me do this a lot if you watch any of my videos. There are several different ways that I do this, and here are 2 of them. My reading glasses and my ring splints are so important to the way that I knit and to my ability to keep on knitting. I really like to knit with small yarn and a tighter tension than I suspect most people use, just because I like the finished product more. But that means I put more strain on my fingers. My left index finger is the one I generally use to tension my yarn, and I've noticed that when I would knit for a long time, my knuckles would begin to be sore from overextension. So I got a ring splint, which solves that problem neatly by simply not letting my finger bend that far. My reading glasses are also a huge help to me. I know many people can knit without looking, but I am not that experienced yet, especially when I'm counting something. Having my reading glasses on instead of my distance lenses helped me avoid getting a headache today that might stop me from knitting tomorrow. Let me know in the comments, what do you do to accommodate for yourself in your hobbies? I love hearing about the ways we all adjust things so that we can keep doing what we love, even if it doesn't always love us back quite as much as we might wish. Once again, as you can see here, I cast on using DPNs, and then after the first few rounds for the toe were finished, I went back and just knitted the stitches onto my circulars. I put 2 different stitch markers on here at the places where the DPNs separated. That way I would know which side was which as I went along. And then you knit until you get to the gusset, which for me was something like 40-ish rows. I said these worked up quickly, and they definitely do. But yeah, then you just knit along until you get to the spot where the gusset goes in. I love doing toe-up socks for a lot of reasons, but I don't love the way the gussets are done through increases. Maybe that's just because I feel like my decreases are neater than my increases, and that's something I need to work on. And this may or may not be true, because when I look at the finished socks, I'm not actually sure I could pick out the exact place where I increase or decrease without being, really, really close to it. But emotionally, that's how I feel. So either way, let me show you the increases for the gusset. Woohoo! Gusset is finished, finally, and that means we need to start the heel. I believe this might be what's called a fleagle heel, if I'm getting my terminology right, but remember, this is only my 3rd ever pair of socks, so please don't rely too much on my terms. I really enjoy this kind of construction because after the first couple of short rows, you don't even have to count anymore. You just sort of go until you get to the gap, then knit or purl 2 together, or maybe SSK or SSP depending on the pattern. Do 1 more stitch and then turn the whole thing around and go the other way until you're down to the correct number of stitches, or you've gotten to the end, which ideally should be happening at the same time. It's incredibly easy to remember. Wow, isn't editing amazing? Here is me absolutely speeding through this heel, which in reality took me longer than this, but surprisingly not by much. Genuinely, these socks are so quick, it only took me about a day per sock. Maybe a couple of hours on the next day because I made the ribbing section, which we've just now reached, about an inch longer than the pattern called for. I really love the way the pattern has the ribbing sort of scrunched down on the ankle. It's super cute and cozy looking and fits the exact whimsical creature vibe that I want for my clothes. Also, I'm so glad this pattern is quick because like I've said before, I don't mind purling, but for some reason, I despise purling on socks. I don't know why it feels so different to me, but I don't like it. So if you notice me doing pearls 2 or 3 different ways on heels where I normally only do them one way, that's why. It's just whatever would work for my hands at the moment. But let's talk ribbing. The ribbing on this one is a 2x2 rib, and it's not just for the cuff at the top. It's the entire 6 or 7 inches of the leg of the sock, and I love it. Partially because I like the way it looks when you're wearing it, but also because when you're not wearing it, it looks bizarre. But then you put it on and it has this really comfy, cozy feel, and it's so enjoyable to wear. You'll also probably notice in the footage I really only do purling one way for the rib, and that's the standard way I do my pearls. I do think it's a bit odd because I don't see other people do purling this way generally, and I have no idea what the name of this method is, but it's the way I've always done it, except for heels or really tiny 1x1 ribbing, which you'll see again, I do in several different ways depending on what works for my hands at the moment. I think that this is at least partially because I've been crocheting for years and I've only learned to knit somewhat recently. Since I tension my yarn in my left hand, I pull it down with my thumb for the purl instead of moving my index finger around. I find that it puts a lot less strain on my hands, which, as I've said, is a big limiting factor for me. But once the ribbing is done, there's only the bind off left. And then they're done. I can definitely see why sock weight yarn is a thing and why this is not it. These are not a summer sock. They are way too bulky to put on with anything but snow boots. However, I am already excited to wear them around the house in the winter, and I absolutely love the way they turned out. And here's how the final hamburger socks stack up, all blocked and dried. Just like the ketchup mustard socks, these look amazing. I am in love with them already, and I haven't even been able to wear them yet. I did add an extra inch of ribbing to the top, so it should have stopped about right here, but I kept going. I wanted that extra like slouchy, comfy section. It's so nice. They don't feel overly bulky on my feet, but they do feel very warm. I would not want to wear these with tennis shoes. Also, I bought 2 skeins for this because I thought these are such enormous socks. I'm gonna do extra on the leg. I'm gonna need more yarn. I was wrong. I only used 1 skein, and I actually had a tiny bit left over. So now I have an extra skein of this yarn, and I have no idea what to do with it. If you have suggestions, I would love to hear about them, because I don't need another pair of hamburger socks. As much as I love these are going to be perfect just the way they are, and I'm not probably going to need another one. So what should I make with this extra skein? Also, I wanted to show you comparing the toes of the 2 toe up socks that I've made. You can kind of see, you can definitely see on the ketchup sock here where there's this little almost like ribbed section, this little ridge where the toe was started. But over here, it's very, very difficult to see exactly where that line is. I have to say, I really love the way that the cast on edge is hidden. And probably if I just flipped the first row of the ketchup socks cast on inside out, you wouldn't see it. It probably would have accomplished mostly the same thing. But with these, there's not even a ridge to feel against my toe. And I really like that. So what's next? Now we have ketchup and mustard. We have hamburger. These are so fun. What's the next ingredient going to be? We'll find out when I see you next week for the next ingredient in our sandwich sock series. Assuming that you like and subscribe so you get to see all the things. And if you're not caught up on this project series and you'd like to be, the place to start is somewhere over here. Either way, I am so glad that you were here today. See you soon, and I can't wait to do more sandwich socks.